Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, there will come a time in every life, yours, mine, and everyone under the sun, when it will all go wrong. The phone call you feared, the diagnosis you dreaded, the betrayal you never saw. And in those moments when the world tilts sideways and your soul cries out for help, you may wonder, "Our God, where are you?" Let me tell you something eternal. God's silence is not his absence. He is not a distant deity who watches from the clouds. He is near, closer than your breath. In the hospital room, in the empty house, in the courtroom, in the midnight hour, he said, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." Not if things go wrong, but when they do, he is there. And when it all collapses, what does God want you to do? He wants you to surrender before you strategize. You see, we're trained to fix things, to fight back, to force a way. But God's way is not always through strength. It's through surrender. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." Not be busy, not be loud. Be still. When the storms rise, we don't need a bigger boat. We need a deeper anchor. And that anchor is faith. Faith is for the fire, not the easy days. Faith isn't proven on sunny days. It's forged in the furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego found God in the fire, not outside of it. Daniel saw the power of God inside the lion's den, not before. The miracle doesn't come to avoid the trouble. It comes through it. And you, my friend, may be going through your own furnace right now. But listen, your brokenness is the beginning of his breakthrough. When your hands are empty, he fills them. When your knees hit the ground, he lifts. When you are weak, then you are strong, because you are no longer standing on your own. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, and he does his best work when you think it's over. So if you're hurting today, confused, angry, tired, afraid, lift your eyes to the hills from where your help comes. Your help doesn't come from your job, your friends, or your money. Your help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. When it all goes wrong, God doesn't want you to run. He wants you to return. He doesn't want your perfection. He wants your presence. He doesn't expect you to understand. He asks you to trust. So stand still, lift your head, dry your tears, and listen. Because God is still speaking even in the silence, when everything begins to unravel in your life, when the phone stops ringing, when friends go silent, when your strength gives way to tears you didn't plan to cry. It's easy to feel like God has turned his face away. It's natural to wonder where he is when the world grows cold and dark around you. You pray and the words echo back. You cry and no comfort seems to come. You ask a why now and oi me, but the answers never arrive. And so your heart begins to whisper a lie. Maybe God isn't there. Maybe he left. Maybe he doesn't care. But I want to tell you today, as firmly and lovingly as I can, God's silence is not his absence. It never has been. The stillness you feel is not abandonment. It's the quiet presence of a God who never leaves, even when he doesn't speak. Just because he's silent doesn't mean he's stopped working. Just because you can't trace his hand doesn't mean he's not writing a story with your life. In fact, some of the greatest moves of God are made in complete silence. Think about the seed planted in the soil. It disappears in the darkness. There's no applause, no sunlight reaches it, no one sees what's happening. And yet, in that hidden place, under pressure, under dirt, in the stillness, life is forming. Roots are stretching. The foundation is being laid. And one day, that seed will push through the soil and reach toward the sky. But it all began in the dark. That's what God does with us. When you're in a season where everything seems hidden, when nothing is working and the light seems so far away, he's still working beneath the surface. You may not feel it, you may not see it, but he is moving with purpose. He's developing the unseen parts of you, your character, your endurance, your faith. He's preparing you for a breakthrough you can't imagine because he sees what you cannot. The Bible is filled with stories of silence. Before David became king, he was hunted, betrayed, hiding in caves. For years, it seemed God was silent, but God was shaping him into the man who would lead a nation. Before Jesus began his ministry, he lived in obscurity for 30 years. The Son of God, full of power and truth, lived quietly in a carpenter's home. And perhaps most powerfully on the cross, Jesus himself cried out, "Oh my God, why have you forsaken me?" And heaven was silent. But even then, especially then, God was not absent. He was accomplishing the greatest rescue mission of all time. When Jesus died, it looked like everything had gone wrong. The sky grew dark, the earth shook, hope seemed lost. But it was in that silence that salvation was being secured. The stone rolled in front of the tomb seemed to seal the end. But heaven knew it was the beginning, because 3 days later, silence gave way to the sound of resurrection. So if you're walking through a silent season right now, don't mistake it for God's absence. The silence is not the same as stillness. Heaven is not ignoring you. God hasn't checked out of your life. He hasn't left you behind. He is nearer than you know, listening more intently than you realize, and working in ways you cannot see. God is not bound by our timelines. He's not pressured by our deadlines. He's not shaken by our panic. When we feel forgotten, He is forming. When we feel forsaken, He is building. When we feel invisible, He is investing. The silence might be stretching you, but it's also strengthening you. The weight might feel heavy, but it's producing something weightier, an unshakable faith, a deeper trust, a more refined soul. Some of God's most profound answers come without words. Sometimes the silence is His way of pulling us closer, not pushing us away. He wants you to press in, not give up. He wants you to learn the sound of His voice in the stillness, not just in the thunder, because faith that only functions when God is loud isn't real faith. True faith is forged in silence. You may not understand the why right now. You may never get all the answers you're looking for. But if you can hold on in the silence, if you can trust in the dark what He showed you in the light, then you will come out stronger, deeper and closer to Him than ever before. Because God is not done. He is not distant. He is not disinterested. He is still watching, still working, still weaving your pain into something glorious. And one day the silence will break and you'll realize that through it all, He was there. In times of crisis, confusion, or deep disappointment, our first instinct is often to act, to solve, to fix. We scramble for answers, reach for strategies, and try to build our way out of brokenness. The world tells us that strength is everything. Strength in planning, in controlling and moving quickly. But God operates differently. His ways are not our ways. His priorities are not built around our performance, but around our posture. And what He asks of us is not a blueprint or a brilliant plan. What He's always wanted is surrender. But before you look for a plan, look for His presence. Before you take a step, fall to your knees. Before you draw the map, seek His face. Because the truth is, God doesn't need your strategy. He doesn't need your impressive ideas, your carefully built timelines, or your confidence in your own wisdom. What He desires most is your heart laid bare before Him. A heart that says, I can't, but you can. I don't know, but you do. I'm not strong enough, but you are. Surrender is not weakness. It's the purest form of strength. It's not giving up. It's giving over. It's not passive. It's power. When you surrender to God, you're acknowledging that the one who holds the universe is far more capable of holding your life than you are. You're admitting that your vision is limited, but His is limitless. You're choosing to trade control for peace, fear for faith, striving for stillness. Throughout Scripture, we see God respond not to clever plans, but to humble surrender. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea, pursued by Pharaoh's army, they didn't need a military strategy. They needed a miracle. And what did God say through Moses? Is stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. In that moment, the command wasn't to fight. It was to stop and trust. The sea didn't part until they surrendered to God's power. When Gideon was preparing to fight the Midianites, he started with an army of 32,000 men. But God reduced it to just 300. Why? Because God wasn't interested in numbers or human strength. He wanted Gideon to rely solely on Him. Victory would not come through strategy. It would come through surrender, through dependence, through obedience. Even Jesus, the very Son of God, modeled this surrender. In the Garden of Gethsemane, as He faced the cross, He prayed with tears and agony, "Not my will, but yours be done." He didn't resist the plan of the Father, though it meant suffering. He didn't demand a way out, though He had the power to call down angels. He surrendered completely. And that surrender became the gateway to salvation for all of us. The truth is, our greatest breakthroughs often come after our deepest moments of surrender. We may think that planning and pushing will get us where we need to go, but it is often when we let go that God begins to move. He's waiting for us to stop striving long enough to hear His voice. He's waiting for us to stop trying to be the solution so we can finally trust in the only one who truly is. There's nothing wrong with having a plan. God can use plans. He can guide and bless wise decisions. But the problem begins when the plan becomes the idol. When we depend more on our own understanding than on God's leading. When we spend more time calculating than we do praying. When we prioritize progress over presence, surrender realigns our perspective. It shifts the weight off of our shoulders and places it into God's hands. It brings peace in the middle of chaos because we no longer feel the pressure to have it all figured out. It brings clarity because it removes the noise of our own ambition and opens space for divine direction. And most of all, surrender invites the supernatural. When we let go, we make room for God to do what only He can do. Maybe you're in a place right now where you're desperate for answers. Maybe the pressure to perform or to find the perfect solution is crushing you. Maybe you've tried everything you know and nothing is working. That's not failure, it's invitation. It's your moment to surrender, not just once, not just with words, but fully with your whole heart, your plans, your pride, your fear, your timeline. Lay it all down. God is not impressed by how strong you can pretend to be. He is drawn to the honest heart, the broken cry, the open hands. He lifts the humble. He guides the yielded. He pours strength into the surrendered. What you need right now is not a new idea. It's a new posture, not a better plan, but a deeper trust. So when life feels out of control, when you're tempted to chase every solution in sight, pause, breathe, and remember, God doesn't need your strength. He wants your surrender. Faith shines brightest in the fire. It is not crafted in moments of ease or proven on mountaintops, but in the valleys where shadows stretch long and hope feels faint. Real faith is not built in comfort, it is revealed in crisis. When life is smooth and everything falls into place, belief is easy. Praise comes naturally. But when everything begins to unravel, when prayers seem unanswered, doors remain closed, and suffering finds a seat at your table, that is where faith steps out from theory into reality. That is where the roots either hold or the tree falls. There is a kind of belief that lives only on the surface. It sounds good in conversation. It shows up on Sundays and quotes scripture with confidence. But that kind of faith is like a house built on sand, fine until the wind starts blowing, until the rain comes, until the storm refuses to pass. And then all the pretty words fall apart and only what's real remains. True faith is not how loudly you speak in the light, it's how firmly you stand in the dark. When life breaks you, when your heart is shattered, your strength exhausted, and your soul cries out for help, faith becomes more than an idea. It becomes the thing that holds you together when everything else is falling apart. It is the decision to believe even when you cannot see. It is the courage to trust even when the outcome is uncertain. It is the quiet voice inside that says, God is still good, even when nothing feels good at all. Faith doesn't mean you're never afraid. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain or anger or confusion. Faith doesn't erase the human experience, it anchors it. It says, even here, even now, I will not let go. It's what allowed Job, after losing everything, to declare, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. It's what sustained Paul in prison cells and shipwrecks. It's what kept Daniel standing in a lion's den and Esther walking into a throne room. Faith is the fire-tested confidence that God is who He says He is, even when life is not what you hoped it would be. So many people wait for easy days to believe. They wait until the storm passes, until the struggle ends, until life calms down. But faith isn't for after the fire, it's for in the fire. That's when it's most powerful. That's when it speaks the loudest. Because when you keep believing while bleeding, keep trusting while trembling, keep worshiping while weeping, that kind of faith moves heaven. That kind of faith breaks chains. In the Bible, 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, stood before a fiery furnace. They had a choice, bow to fear or stand in faith. They chose faith not because they were certain of rescue, but because they were certain of God. Their words echo through history. Even if He does not deliver us, we will not bow. That is the heart of real faith. It doesn't demand a miracle to believe. It believes regardless of the outcome. When the fire rages, faith doesn't panic. It remembers. It remembers the promises of God, the goodness of God, the faithfulness that never fails. Faith looks back to see how far He has already carried you, and it looks forward to believe He's not done yet. It whispers to your heart in the midnight hour, this is not the end. God is still writing your story. Some people think faith is about having all the answers, about quoting all the right verses and never struggling. But the truth is, faith is often quiet. It's not flashy. It's the person who gets up every day and chooses to believe again. It's the single mom who keeps praying over her kids. The grieving soul who still lifts their hands in worship. The addict who fights for another day of freedom. That is faith. Raw, real, fire-forged faith. The fire doesn't destroy true faith. It defines it. Like gold refined in a furnace, your faith is made stronger in the heat. The impurities burn off. The doubts get exposed and dealt with. The distractions fall away, and what's left is something solid, unshakable, eternal. You may be walking through your own fire right now. Maybe the flames feel close and the smoke makes. Maybe you're questioning everything, wondering if you can hold on any longer. Hear this. Faith is not about how strong you feel. It's about where you choose to stand. If you're still holding on, even with trembling hands, that is faith. If you're still praying, even with a broken voice, that is faith. If you're still here, still believing, still hoping, that is a faith the fire cannot destroy. God never promised a life without fire, but He promised to walk through it with you. Not around it, not above it, but with you. The fire may burn, but it won't consume you. The storm may rage, but it won't drown you. Because faith doesn't remove the fire. It gives you the strength to walk through it and come out stronger on the other side. So when chaos surrounds you, when life pushes you to your knees, when the world tells you to give up, stand. Not because you're strong, but because your God is. Faith was never for the easy days. It was made for this moment, for the fire. And in the fire, it becomes unshakable. Brokenness feels final. It feels like the end of the road. The moment your strength gives out, your dreams collapse, and everything you held together with clenched fists finally slips through your fingers. It's a place of pain, of silence, of empty hands and heavy hearts. It's also the place where heaven often leans in the closest. Because what feels like an ending to us is often the beginning of something divine. God doesn't run from brokenness. He meets us there. He does His most beautiful, most powerful work when we have nothing left to offer but our surrender. There's something sacred about rock bottom, not because the pain is holy, but because it clears the way. It strips us of the illusion that we are in control. It breaks through our pride, our plans, our performance. At the bottom, we stop pretending, we stop striving. In that emptiness, we make room for the only one who can fill us in a way the world never could. The Rock of Ages doesn't wait for you to clean up your life before He moves. He comes right into the rubble and begins to rebuild. All throughout Scripture, brokenness is the launching point for God's miracles. It was in the belly of the fish that Jonah surrendered. It was from a pit that Joseph's journey toward a palace began. It was in a cave after failure and fear that David heard God whisper hope. It was in the heartbreak of denial that Peter found his way back to grace. Over and over, God doesn't wait for people to be whole. He meets them in their pieces. Because He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for permission. Permission to step in. Permission to heal. Permission to restore. It may feel like your life is shattered. Like everything you hoped for has slipped away. But what if this isn't the end? What if this is the ground God is going to build something on? What if your lowest place is the very soil where He wants to plant something new, something stronger, something eternal? The world tells us to avoid brokenness at all costs, to mask it, medicate it, run from it. But God invites us to bring it to Him just as it is. He doesn't flinch at the mask. He doesn't recoil at the pain. He draws near to the brokenhearted, not away from them. Sometimes we ask, why would God let me break? But often it's not cruelty, it's preparation. When we are full of ourselves, there's no room for Him. When we are in control, we don't see our need. But in brokenness, our eyes open. We see differently. We hear more clearly. We depend more fully. Our strength fades and we finally lean on His. That's not weakness. That's the doorway to breakthrough. We want resurrection, but we resist the cross. We want the miracle, but we run from the breaking. Yet the breaking is where the blessing begins. Jesus Himself broke bread before multiplying it. His body was broken before salvation was made available to the world. He wept. He allowed Himself to be crushed so that from that place life could rise. That same pattern shows up in our lives again and again. Breaking, surrender, breakthrough, glory. It's in brokenness that the mask comes off. It's there that God meets the real you. Not the version you show the world, not the image you work hard to maintain, but the vulnerable, raw, trembling you. And He says, I can work with this. He doesn't need your polished resume or your flawless faith. He needs your heart, your honesty, your willingness to say, I can't do this alone. When you're at your weakest, God is not standing on the sidelines waiting for you to get stronger. He is stepping in, wrapping you in grace, holding the pieces you thought were too far gone. He doesn't just mend what's broken. He makes it new. He doesn't just patch you up. He transforms you. And what once felt like the worst season of your life may become the foundation of your greatest testimony. Rock bottom doesn't mean God has left you. It might just mean He's about to show up in a way you've never seen before. It might mean He's about to write a chapter you couldn't have written on your own. Because where you see failure, He sees future. Where you see a mess, He sees a miracle. Where you feel done, He's just getting started. Your brokenness isn't the end, it's the beginning. The beginning of healing, of rebuilding, of knowing God in a deeper, more intimate way. It's the place where grace flows freely, where strength is born in surrender, and where the ashes of your past become the soil of your purpose. Don't run from it. Don't hide it. Bring it to God, lay it at His feet, and watch what He does with the pieces.